So as we stated, we are on story 292, the road to Emmaus. And when we think about this, this topic. First of all, when you think about a road, what do you think about? What's a road for? Travel. Lead you someplace. Take you from one place to another. And that's the beauty of what the Word of God is for. Is to get you from a place of being in a sinful, eternally dead state to a place where you are righteous and eternally alive. Now, how we make that transition, that's our road. That's how we travel. And so we're looking here now at this road to Emmaus. And on this road, we're going to see a couple of things happen. There's going to be a conversation. And that's part of what growth happens. That's how, a lot of times, how you get from one place to another. One of the best travel roads is the road of conversation. Being able to speak and to talk, to share. Parents sharing with children. Brothers sharing with another brother. Sisters sharing with another sister. Communities sharing. Passing on information that can expand your understanding and get you from one point to another. And so we're going to see here that on this road, yes, they are walking on the road, but as they're walking on the natural road, they're traveling a intellectual and a spiritual road of communication, of conversation. That's the thing about building relationships. When God wants to speak to us, He gave us what? His word. Conversation. When God told us that when we come to Him in what? In prayer. What is that?
Words.
Conversation. Words. We're using that. It's so important. We can't overemphasize, because the words out of the heart, the mouth speaks. So the words come out that speak the things that are in the heart. And a lot of times, there are even times when we can conversate with groans that can't be actually verbalized. Right? When you see somebody that is on the extremes of the spectrum of emotion, extremely grieving or extremely joyful, a lot of times it ain't a whole lot of words. It's a whole lot of just hollering and oohing and crying on both sides. Crying for sadness, or crying for joy. You know, audible words that you won't find in Webster's dictionary, on both sides. Cries. But those are the things that sometimes that have even a greater intensity of meaning, especially when it comes down to the things of God. But you can recognize it. You can hear somebody crying over a death of a loved one, and you can say, well, what did they say? Well, I can hear them in there saying something, but they ain't compensating in that sense. But you know what they mean. You know what every one of those groans mean, don't you? Right? The same thing on the joyful side. If something happens, you hear them, and they just, that they're just not putting words together. And if they are words, they're words that don't usually go together. Oh my, it's like they just. And the words, you put them in a sentence, you can be like, well, there's no subject, there's no proper verb, there's nothing there. But you know exactly what they mean. You know, their expression and feeling has been related to you probably better than if they had sat down and said, oh, right now I feel extremely joyful. You understand it, but you get that true communication, that true connection from that emotional conversation. So conversation and transferring of information is extremely important. When you look in the Garden of Eden, what was done to get Eve off track? It was words. It was a conversation that Satan had. Satan knew that if I can get in here and have a conversation with Eve, I can get her what? Off track. Get her traveling what? A different road. So these roads that we travel because of what we say, what we have heard, what we feel we want to say. All these things have a lot to do with the roads that we're on. All right. So with that, let's go ahead and go into our reading here. Road to Emmaus. Let's take a listen to this.
4292, The Road to Emmaus. He appeared to Cephas, and behold, after that, he appeared in a different form to two of them, while they were going along their way that very day to the country, to a village named Emmaus, which was about 60 stadia from Jerusalem. And they were conversing with one another about all these things that happened. And it came to pass, in their conversing and reasoning together, that Jesus himself came near, and was going on with them. And their eyes were held back, so as not to know him. And he said to them, "What are these words that you exchange, walking with one another?" And they stood still, looking sad. And the one, Clopas by name, answered and said to him, "Are you the only stranger in Jerusalem, that you do not know the things that came to pass in it during these days?" And he said to them, "What things?" And they said to him, "The things about Jesus of Nazareth, who became a man, a prophet, powerful in deed and word before God and all the people. How also the chief priests and our rulers delivered him up to a judgment of death, and crucified him. And we were hoping that it was he who was about to redeem Israel. Yes, and beside all these things, this day is the third day passing since these things happened. And also, certain women of ours astonished us, coming early to the tomb. And not finding his body, they also came, claiming to have seen an apparition of angels, who said he is alive. And certain ones with us went away to the tomb, and found it even as the women said, and they did not see him. And he said to them, O inconsiderate, and slow in heart to believe in all that the prophets spoke. Was it not necessary for the Christ to suffer these things, and to enter into his glory? And beginning from Moses, and from all the prophets, he was expounding to them in all the scriptures the things about himself. And they came near the village where they were going, and he gave the appearance of going on further. And they constrained him, saying, Remain with us, for it is almost evening. And the day declined, and he went in to remain with them. And it came to pass in his sitting with them, taking the bread, he blessed it, and breaking it, he was giving it to them. And their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he became invisible to them. And they said one to another, Was not our heart burning within us as he was speaking to us on the road, and as he was opening up to us the scriptures? And they rose up the same hour, and they went away, and turned back to Jerusalem, and found the 11 gathered together, and those with them. And as they went to tell his disciples, they reported it to the others, saying, The Lord was raised indeed, and was seen by Simon. And they were telling of the things on the road, and how he was made known to them in the breaking of the bread. But they did not believe them either.
All right. So what we have here in this road to Emmaus, once again, this is after the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. And his disciples and his followers are still in this cloud of confusion. Right? Okay, what's going on here? All right. The women went up there, and they were going up, and they carried the spices, remember? And they're saying, okay, well, we're going to take these spices, and we're going to finish up what we weren't able to finish up. And they were expecting to go up there and finish preparing a what? A dead body. Not even figuring to themselves how they're going to get the stone moved away and how they're going to get past the guards and all that. They just went ahead anyway. And when they got there, they see the stone what?
Rolled away.
Now, Mary Magdalene, she runs back and she tells the disciples that somebody has come and stolen the what? The body. Because she's just assuming that there's nothing in their wildest dreams would ever give them a reason to believe that he has risen. They're all trying to what? Rationalize what's going on. We're trying to put our best rational thinking into the circumstances, just like we do. not realizing that sometimes God is working out our rational situations. Well, God, you wouldn't have me to not be able to pay this bill and have this happen. But then the Lord is saying, but you're not looking at it how I'm looking at it. We're going to let that bill go the way whatever it's going to go. And then down the road, we're going to take care of it. But right now, we need you to just believe that that's part of what I'm doing. See, they couldn't believe that Jesus is going to, the person we accept as the Messiah is going to what? Die? We're going to let something die? Something that you have need of is going to die? We all need transportation. My car's going to die. We all need good health. My health is going to fail me. You know, we're looking at all these things, and sometimes we can't believe that God can still be in this when it's decaying. But yet God is there. And so the disciples and his followers, they're not even thinking that God is actually blessing. It had to decay because unless a corn seed falls to the ground and dies, it cannot what? Raise up and bring forth fruit. So they're in this confusion. And so then the women go back and they see that there's nothing's there. Then James, not James, but then Peter and John run up to the tomb. And they go looking in, and they don't see nothing there. They just see the cocoon wrappings and the napkin fold up, placed by itself. All right. Then Mary Magdalene goes back to there, and then she sees what? Two angels. And she looks at the angels, not as being anything spiritual. She's using her natural mind, because you're not going to see spiritual things when you're not capable of understanding it. So all she's seeing is what? Natural. So she sees two angels and assumes they're the what? The gardeners. And says, where did you what? Lay him. So all of this is going through their mind. That all of this conversation is all based upon their natural ability to put one item with another item and come to a proper, logical, natural conclusion. But we're not dealing with logical, natural things. We're dealing with what? Spiritual things. And that's the thing that God's trying to get us to see. And that's why I think a lot of times in our natural world, God lets our natural world get all shucking up and down. Mm-hmm. He lets it break down because we're trying to follow natural tracks. And God's trying to get us to see, stop following the natural track. Follow me. Trust me. I know you have need of these things. What did Jesus say? Your Heavenly Father knows you have need of these things. He says he knows every sparrow. He knows every blade of grass. Matter of fact, he knows every hair on your head. He's numbered them. He knows them. He knows them by name. He doesn't know how many you got. He knows each particular hair follicle. That's the degree of depth of what he knows. There's nothing that God doesn't know. And so Jesus said, your Heavenly Father knows you have need of these things. And then he says the phrase, oh ye of what? Little faith. Boy, do we have little faith. You know why? Because we put our faith in the wrong things. We put our faith in 2 plus 2 equals what? 4. We're trying to analyze and recognize. We're trying to scientifically and laboratorily develop a following of how we should rationally move in the things of God. When the Lord says, trust me. Now, sometimes God works in natural things. Sometimes God says, go get 2 of this and go get 2 of that. And guess what you're going to have? You're going to have 4. God does work in natural things. But more often, he works in what? Spiritual things. And so therefore, when we're trying to follow the Lord, we got to learn, and I emphasize the word learn, trust him even when naturally it doesn't seem right. Job. God was honoring Job. Well, wait a minute. Wasn't Job the one that lost his children, lost his businesses, and lost his health? And God was honoring him? Some people will say, well, if God's going to honor me like that way, I'll pass. I don't want that kind of honor. But that's not the right attitude, is it? No, it isn't. So God knew what to do in that situation. But from our points of view, it just doesn't seem like that's the way it should go. So how do we learn these lessons? We learn these lessons by staying in the Spirit, trusting in the Lord, continuously, right? Being able to realize that I don't have to have everything I think I need. I just need to know God. Because in Him is what? Everything. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. So long as He's your shepherd, you will never, ever want. Because He has everything. But then people say, well, I want a bigger house. Or I want a bigger car. Or I want a bigger bank account. Ain't talking about that kind of want. We're talking about the wants that fill the soul and the spirit. So you're trying to fill the natural man. But the Lord already told us, you can have everything that the natural man could ever want. What would it profit a man if he gained the whole world but lose his soul? So what is God interested in? Your soul. But what are we oftentimes interested in? Our natural self. So the Lord knows what He's focusing on. Right? So when we look at this, we see this confusion amongst His followers. And so now they're kind of like, because Jesus told the women to tell them that Jesus would meet them in Galilee. And now they're walking around traveling. They're going because they're like, basically they're thinking party's over. It's done.
He's dead.
He's dead. He's gone. And we're going to see that here as they talk about this. And so they're on their way back to doing what they got to do. And it says, and behold, after that He appeared to different of them, to two of them while they were going on their way. All right, now these two, as you can see here in this right here, he pulls from 1 Corinthians 15 and 5, and it says, and He appeared to Cephas. And that Cephas is who? Peter. Who's also called Simon. He's called Peter, and he's called Cephas. And so some people think that when you go down into the story, and you're going to see where it says Cleophas, that may be a translation of Peter. So maybe one of the people that was walking this road was Peter. It's a possibility. I won't argue that. It could be. Maybe it wasn't. But it's just something that as the guy put this narrative together to combine all this stuff, he wants you to have that as a possibility. Think on that. That could be. We don't know. I wasn't walking the road when this happened, so I can't tell you whether it was him or not. But it certainly is a good thing to kind of ponder on your mind. So, but he goes on and he says, and while they were going on their way that very day to the country, to the village named Emmaus, which is about 60 stadia from Jerusalem. So they're walking around. They were what? Conversating with one another about all the things that had happened. They're trying to understand it. They're talking. They're conversating. We talked about conversation, right? It builds that road, that connection. They're trying to understand this. All right. Now, go back to the book of Job. Like Job's friends, when they came there, they began to what? Conversate. But they're conversating out of what? Ignorance, doubt, ignorance, unbelief, not knowing, not understanding that God promised you. He said, I will never leave you, nor forsake you. Now, if God ever leaves you and forsakes you, He ain't God. And that's something that sometimes when you can't hang on to anything else, you can hang on to that.
Amen.
I may be where I really don't feel like I want to be, but obviously God's here with me.
Yes.
I may be going through something I would never ever think I would have to go through, but obviously God must be here going through it what? With me. Because He said, I'll never leave you nor forsake you. And sometimes that's not easy to believe.
Amen.
All right? And it says, and it came to pass in their conversating and reasoning together that Jesus Himself came near. So, who's there with them?
Jesus.
Because He told them, I'll never what?
Leave you.
And was going with them. It says, and their eyes were what? Held back, so as to not know Him. All right? Just like our eyes. Can we see into the spiritual realm right now?
No.
We can't. But is there a spiritual realm?
Yes.
Okay. Even our science is saying that now with quantum physics, because they do what's called the double split experiment, where they send light particles through this split. That when they send it out, the particles out one at a time, they're supposed to land on the target as one particular shot. But what ends up happening is somehow or another that one particle turns into a wave of possibilities. And understanding how, they can't understand how that happens. But that only happens when they don't measure it. So if they don't measure it, they don't observe it, when they shoot those particles out one at a time, it comes out as a wave of possibilities. So they have no idea, because it's a double split, which split it went through. The wave of possibilities says, well, in reality, we went through both. But that's impossible. How can you go through both? And I'm not making this up. This is reality. This is true science. But then when they said, well, let's find out which split it went through, let's find out what happened, let's measure it. They begin to measure it, it's no longer a wave. So this is sending a lot of, there's a scientist by the name of Max Planck who came to the conclusion that consciousness, not matter, is the fundamental reality. And that matter is a derivative of consciousness, of the non-tangible. So Max Planck's statement, consciousness is fundamental, matter is a derivative, equates to the statement that first the spiritual, then the what? Then the natural. That's exactly what he said in a different way. But he ain't going to go back and quote the Bible as saying what he's saying. He's not going to put the connection. But we can put the connection. So the spiritual reality is way more fundamental and sound than the natural. But when you only think in natural, guess what?
It's natural.
It's always going to be natural. So their eyes were held back. They couldn't see the what? The spiritual, which is the reality of all realities. All right? We could spend a lot of time talking about, sometimes you even go back to Job, when you say, well, wait a minute, but God let Job's children die. Well, if we're looking at it only in the what? Natural. We consider that to be what? Horrible. How could that be? Because if you're only looking at it in the natural, my goodness. But if you're looking at it in the spiritual, you begin to recognize, well, then there's something to it where those children went that is greater. The children are in the spiritual realm just like God is.
Amen.
But we can no longer what? See it. There's a lot I could say on that, and I'll say that for when we get to that. And actually, we'll see that a lot more, even when we get to like when we talk about Moses and how the children were put in the river and they drowned. And we dealt with it a little bit when we saw how even when Jesus was born, how all the children, Herod had them all what? Put to death. All children. There's a lot to that. But Jesus said, suffer the little children to what? To come unto me. Suffer them to come to me. So a lot of children come to the Lord in ways that we would not prefer. We would not want that to happen. But we do know this, when Jesus said, those children do what? They come to where? To me. All right. That's so well, explain that. I can't go no further. Just like how Max Planck and all them scientists that deal with quantum physics, they can't understand how me thinking about something can change a particle from a wave to actual, can change an element from a wave to a particle just by me thinking about it. So then you go, well, wait a minute. You mean thinking about something has an effect on the natural matter? Well, wait a minute. But then didn't God always say that when you have an issue, you should do what? Think on it, pray on it, meditate, put your heart. What is prayer? But what? Focusing on a particular what issue? And you say, well, what does that mean? I don't know what it means. I'm just telling you what it is. I have no idea why that double split experiment changes light particles into waves of possibility and vice versa. But they know it works. You know how come they know it works? Because that's why they build computers. They build computers off of quantum physics. They know it works even though they can't explain it. We know spiritual stuff works even though we can't what? Explain it. So we look like we're kind of walking in the same arenas here. All right. let's move along here. So it says their eyes were held back so they couldn't see it. And he said to them, what are these things, what are these words that you exchange? What are you guys talking about? Walking one with another. And they stood still looking sad. All right. So their conversation wasn't a conversation of joy. They were on the other end of the spectrum, right? Mm-hmm. And one, Cleophas, who possibly could have been Peter, we don't know, but Cleophas said, answering and said to him, are you only a stranger in Jerusalem, that you do not know the things that come to pass in its doing these days? So he's basically saying, you have no idea what's going on? Mm-hmm. How could you ask me a question like that? Mm-hmm. You don't know what's happening? You don't know what just happened here? Mm-hmm. But yet, he's talking to who? Peter. This guy Cleophas is talking to Jesus. But he don't know he's talking to Jesus. He's thinking he's just talking to somebody that's what? Walking around and have no clue as to what's going on in the town. You don't get the town newspaper, man? You ain't listen to the radio? You ain't check out CNN yet? You don't realize what's happening? Right? And it said, and he said to them, what things? Look at what Jesus is doing. Don't tell me the Lord won't take you to the what? Nth degree. Right then he could have said, look, man, I'm Jesus. I don't raise from the conversation would have been over. But what is he trying to do? He's trying to get them to understand how you're continually trying to methodically bring things out through thinking only in the natural, fail and will continue to fail and will always fail. I need you guys to think what? Spiritually. If you only think naturally, this world will disappoint you. Mm-hmm. If you only think naturally, having the kind of government we got now could have you as depressed as you could. But I'm not worried about that. I'm done with it. It is what it is. It is what it is. The man is in, and he, let him. But guess what? Him getting in there didn't do nothing to God. That's right. And that's where I said, you know what? That don't change God. Amen. It didn't change anything that God's doing. It didn't change it. And guess what? God was not surprised. God didn't go, I didn't think he would win. No, God knew. We were the ones talking about, I didn't think he could win. But the Lord wasn't surprised. He knew. Right? But oftentimes he lets us stay where? In the dark. In the dark. Let's see how you're going to navigate through. Are you in the darkness of the natural going to shine a spiritual light? Are you going to do that? Or are you going to keep trying to grope around, only trying to focus on the natural? Or are you going to say, you know what? Spiritually, we still fine. We're okay. Never have been a problem spiritually. Because I'm trusting in who? God. Trusting in Jesus. That's right. Amen. All right. So Jesus plays along with their ignorance and says what? What things? And they said to him the things about Jesus of Nazareth. So now they want to talk about Jesus to Jesus. Mm-hmm. Who became a man. That's true. Mm-hmm. A prophet. That's true. Powerful in deeds and in words before God and all people. 100% true. All right. And how also the chief priests, those what? Religious leaders. And our rulers. People that have power, right? Mm-hmm. Delivered him up to a judgment of death. More truth. And crucified him. They got the story right. Mm-hmm. They got the story right. So you got the story right, but then yet, if you see all of that and just the natural, you got a reason to be depressed.
You're still bored of understanding.
Yeah, you got to right. If that's all you see, then you should be sad. But you don't see that Jesus is right there with you. Mm-hmm. Right there with you while you're telling your sad story. Sometimes you be talking to somebody, just telling them to say, oh, this is, and the Lord's right there with you. Mm-hmm. I can't believe this. I can't believe. And the Lord's right there, just right in the midst of the conversation while you having it. He's there. But are you going to believe that? Are you going to accept that? While you're struggling, while you're sad, He's with you. He's with you every day. When y'all go to school, guess what? The Lord's with you every
Amen.
day. He goes to class with you. He goes to every event you into. The Lord is there. And you say, well, I don't see him. I don't know he's there. He's there. You know why he's there? Because if he wasn't there, then he wouldn't be God.
Amen.
So while you in school, while you struggle, well, how come I have to struggle with this? And that don't matter. God is still what? He's still there. Because see, God understands the what? The end results. And what you going to get out of it. When I went to school, I struggled. I had some issues, but my issues were polarizing. There were certain things I did really great in. There was one year in school when everything lined up. I had everything that I understood. I was good at science. I was good at math, different things, and all that. And I happened to have a really good English class. That's where I struggled, where I was able to get an A. And for that one semester, I got straight A's in every class. It was my final grade in the 8th grade. So when I left the 8th grade going into the 9th grade, my final marks were all A's.
Amen.
You know what my mom said? Well, now you really gonna have to do a whole lot to keep up with this. And guess what I knew? I wasn't keeping up with this. It just worked out. It just worked out. Because I knew that there was a lot of things I didn't understand. And sure enough, when I got into high school, those straight A's went away. Because there were other things coming along that you had to do. There was a lot more comprehension, reading, and which is where I struggled at, and then so that pulled down the history grade, that pulled down the science grade, because now you got to read all this historical stuff. Well, why am I bringing all this up? I had no idea that God's going to have me reading through the what?
The Bible.
The Bible. If you had told me back then, please. That's where I struggled. Now, if you'd have told me God was going to have me do some math or have me do, I'd have been like, oh, yeah, I can see that. Reading through the Bible? That's where I struggled. The words started getting all crisscrossed and everything, and But I look at it now. I take my time. God's bringing you what? Comprehension. That was the other thing. And it's like now the comprehension is like I can understand it better than I can read it.
Amen.
I can almost see myself in that situation. But guess what? God allows a lot of time your weakness to ultimately become your what?
Strength.
Your strength. And we always got to keep that in mind. All right, so they're telling a sad story. So they crucified him. And we were hoping, look at this, we were hoping that it was he who was about to redeem Israel. They were looking for the Redeemer. But he is going to redeem Israel. But he's going to redeem Israel just like he's redeeming everything else. By dealing with the what first? Sin, which is in where? What realm? Spiritual. Sin shows itself in the natural too.
Oh yeah.
But the real aspects of sin is where? In the spiritual realm. Which is why God can allow us to be forgiven. All right. And he says, and yes, besides these things, it's the third day. And so the third day ring in their mind because they remember saying something about, well, the third day something was supposed to happen. Well, guess what? It is the third day and something is happening, but you just can't what? See it. You can't see it. All right? And also certain women of ours astonished us coming to the tomb early. So now they're going back and talk about those women and not finding the what? The body. Okay, let's put 2 and 2 together, brothers. He didn't find the body. He said on the third day he's supposed to rise. What do you think happened?
He rose.
But that ain't what they came. That's not the conclusion they came to. Instead, they come to the conclusion based upon mathematical, natural math. Man's not there. Somebody must have came in there and stole it. Because guess what? Because dead people don't get up. That's their thinking. Dead folks don't get up.
That's right.
That's what we think. We go to a funeral.
You think they in the box?
We ain't expecting nobody to rise. If somebody rises, they're going to clear that place. Because you know why? Because nobody wants to see that. They're scared of that. All right? But in the real sense, this was told. God said that you destroy this body, and in 3 days, I will what? I will raise it back up. So they're not putting it together. But guess what? Can you get mad at them?
No.
Then if you're going to get mad at them, you might as well get mad at yourself. Because a lot of things we don't put together. And they also came claiming that they had seen an aberration of angels. And now they're talking spiritual things. Now they're getting closer now. See, the women saw something what? Spiritual.
Spiritual.
Right? And that helps, but still they didn't have the what? The beliefs. So sometimes you can dabble in the spiritual things and still don't come to the right what? Conclusion. There's a lot of people that dabble in the spiritual realm. They believe in the spiritual realm above the natural. Oh, like the guy I just talked about, Max Planck. Right? He don't believe in Jesus.
No.
But he knows fundamentally that the matter is not the real reality. There are a lot of new age people that believe in spiritual things, but they ain't trying to follow Jesus. Right? They trying to follow some other spiritual stuff. And guess who else is in the spirit? The devil.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And he's trying to do what? To people what he did to Eve.
True.
Show them there's greater things. I'm going to show you some greater knowledge. There's more to this natural world. Yes, there is. And try to get them to go, but get them to go into the spiritual realm under a what? Under a cursed philosophy. Not from Jesus. All right. And not finding his body, they saw aberration of angels, which saying he is alive. So the angel said he is alive. So that's what they told. They told him to come back and tell the disciples that he has risen. But they didn't believe it. And certain ones of us went away to the tomb, and finding even as the women had said, the tomb was open and the body was what? Gone. And they did not see him. We didn't see Jesus, nor did we see any angels when the guys went there. And he said to them, "O unconsiderate and slow in heart." So in other words, you what? You just cannot believe. You will not put spiritual reality over your natural discoveries. All right? You won't do it. You won't believe all that the prophets have spoken. And we can underline that because the prophets are still speaking. When you read about Jeremiah and Isaiah and Daniel, there's stuff in there that's yet still to be fulfilled. Even what Jesus has said. Was it not necessary for Christ to suffer? So according to the prophets, it was what? Necessary. This was what was supposed to happen. These things. And to enter into his glory. So he's supposed to suffer first and then go to his glory. And beginning at what? Moses. And from some of the prophets. All the prophets. He expanded to them in most of the scriptures.
All the scriptures.
All the scriptures. So that means we got to talk about what? All the scriptures?
All of them.
I mean, we got to read.
Genesis to Revelation.
We got to read Habakkuk.
Yes.
We got to read Joel.
Yes.
Got to read it all, don't we?
All.
That's what the road to Emmaus is all about.
All
Can we go through what? All of this.
All 66.
That's why I like that name for our fellowship, because we're going to go through what? All of it. We ain't going to skip anything. Well, I don't understand this, so we should skip it. No, we ain't going to skip it. We're going to go through it, and you know what we're going to say? I don't understand. But we're going to go through it, because sometimes just reading it, your natural mind didn't understand it, but your spiritual
mind
is eating it up, just enjoying it. See, that's the thing you got to keep in mind. That's what you do with babies. You talk to a baby when they don't understand nothing, but their being is picking stuff up, and then all of a sudden they start doing what? Talking. Okay. But if you never say anything to them, they'll never learn. And guess what? The language you speak is the language they're gonna pick up.
That's right.
So when you're talking to your kids, you talk spiritually. Well, my kids are not spiritual. My kids care about cookies and play and clothes and iPhones. And talk spiritual stuff to your kids. Because guess what? They have a what? They have a spirit. And their spirit is what? Picking it up. Just like how a baby. And then at some point in time, guess what your kid gonna come back and do? Say something to you spiritual. And you're gonna be like, ooh.
Yeah, they're listening.
Oh, look at that.
Questions or saying something. You know, that you didn't even think.
You didn't think. We like, oh man, they must be paying attention. Yeah, their spirit is picking it up.
Yes.
Reading the word, going through the scriptures is important. Well, I'm just listening to it or I'm just reading. I don't really get it. I ain't worried about whether your mind gets it. I want to know that your spirit hears it. Because if your spirit hears it, it's feeding it. Just like you talk to that baby. Well, why are you talking to the baby? He don't understand nothing. No, it would be cruel to not talk to a baby because the baby don't understand it. That would be cruel. That'd be inhumane. Just like it would be inhumane and ungodly to not. I'm not going to talk spiritual talk to people that don't believe in Jesus, that don't believe in God. I'm not going to talk to spiritual talk to people that don't believe. No, you just keep talking. People, they don't get it. They ain't got to get it. They ain't got to understand it. And you ain't got to be preaching to folks either. You just talking good talk. Whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are of a good report. Think on these things. You're just talking good spiritual talk. Because that person has a spirit, has a soul. And if God has that soul alive, now, are there people who God said don't pray for them? Yeah, because God has already said that soul, that spirit is canceled. He said that to several people. We'll see that when we get to the Old Testament.
That's right.
Right? We've seen that happen with Pharaoh. All right. So he says, he expanded on them all the scriptures, the things of himself. And they came near to the village where they were going, and he gave the appearances he was going to go further. So Jesus act like, well, I guess y'all done with me. But they constrained him, saying, remain with us, for it is almost evening. So they wanted to hear some more. Now we're going to see here towards the ending, they enjoyed the conversation as he was expanding to them, beginning at Moses and doing all the prophets, all the scripture. They were enjoying it. They wanted to hear more because their spirit was being what?
Fed.
And so it came to pass in the sitting with them, taking bread, he what? He blessed it and braked it. And he was giving it to them, and their what? Eyes were open. And they recognized him. And then he became what? Invisible. Look at that. Wait. The minute you recognize him, guess what happened? He comes. So now you know he was here, but now he's going back. You got a glimpse, but now he's gone. But that's all they needed. That's all they needed. They like, pack this stuff up. We got to go back. We're going back. We got to tell people we've seen the Lord. Sometimes that's all you need in your situation. You're going through, and the Lord just gives you a glimpse. I'm here. And you watch your situation just like, it don't matter now. It's all good.
It's all good.
It's all.
Amen.
Nothing changed but their point of view. That's the only thing that changed, was their point of view. The rulers that crucified Jesus are still the rulers that crucified him. Jesus was in the tomb. That didn't change. All that stuff that happened, he was risen. They couldn't find the body. The body was gone. All those circumstances were still those circumstances. The only thing that changed was your perspective and point of view about the circumstances. That's what, a lot of times we thinking we want God to change things. We want, prayer what? Change. What prayer changes is you. Your perspective, your point of view, your reasoning out what you think you understand changes. And then everything about it changes. The whole circumstances change. You ever have some food that you was like, I ain't gonna never eat that. Then you eat it, and all of a sudden you're like, man, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I could go through some stuff like that myself, but we run out of time here. There's been a whole lot of stuff. I said, "Ooh, I don't want that. That don't look good." And you all of a sudden you be like, "Oh man, can we get some more of that?" All right. It says, and they said one to another, "Was not our heart burning within us as he spake to us on the road, and as he opened up to us the scriptures?" So while they were traveling and talking, they were like, "Ooh, this is good. This is good." Sometimes we come together, right?
Sounds like
Somebody we know. It's like, man, this is good. I'm enjoying it. Why? Because the soul is being fed. Not understanding that, man, why am I, I'm feeling a little good. Well, I ain't got no extra money. My body's still achy, but I'm feeling good. Spirit, the soul, everything's lifted. God can do that for us.
Yes, he can.
And they rose up that same hour. In other words, they didn't sit back and relax. They got up and they went out and turned back to Jerusalem and found the 11 gathered together and those with them. As they went to tell the disciples, they reported it to the others, saying, "The Lord was risen," what? indeed. And seen, and was seen by who? Simon. So this is again why they think that maybe that guy's Cleophas was Peter. But they mention his name here. And they were telling of these things on the road, and how he was made known to them in the what? Breaking of bread. But they did not believe what? Them either. Look at that. So they got a glimpse. They saw it when their eyes were open, but then Jesus immediately what? Disappeared. But that's all it took. I'm good. I'm convinced. I don't care. Sometimes you can be like, I really don't care what you think. I know what's going on. And when you have that kind of confidence about God in you, then you can move along. You'd be surprised how you could just go through circumstances and situations. You're like, well, you're about ready to go through a little dark period here, but it's okay. I'm going to go through it, and it's going to be all right. And then you go through it, and you don't have that dread. You don't have that angst of fear. God's, well, then something else. Got more bad news. Okay, well, and they're just waiting for you to crumble. No, I'm not crumbling. I'm not trying to say that I'm excited about the bad news. I'd rather not have the bad news.
Right.
But that doesn't change God. And that's the key. If we can just sometimes, that don't change who God is. And it don't change. It never changes what God is doing in my life.
Amen.
Because God knows what my future is.
Amen.
And He's orchestrated and ordained it.
Amen.
And I'm not going to get dismayed. And we'll close with this. We often think about when Jesus told his disciples to get on the boat. We're going to go to the what? To the other side. Well, He said we're going to go to where? The other side. But on their way there, they hit all the waves and the wind, and the ship was flipping and twisting and turning. And she said, well, it don't look like we're going to make it to the other side. Well, why would you think that? Well, look at the storm we're in. Look at the problems. Look at the issues. How are we going to get from here to there? Well, did God say we go to the other side? So then that don't change. These issues and storms don't change what the outcome is going to be. The outcome is we're going to get to the other side. You're going to be there. You're going to be on the other side. You're going to be in the house. You're going to be, doing what you're supposed to do. Amen. You're going to have the job. You're going to have the car.
Amen.
God said you're going to have the what it is that He said you're going to have. But you may go through stuff you didn't expect nor plan to go through.
Amen.
And going through it wasn't fun, but that don't change what God said.
Amen.
God is still God.
Amen.
And that's the part we have to try to learn. And can I emphasize the word learn? To do. Because we're used to getting to the point where we get disappointed and then depressed. Mm-hmm. Disappointed and frustrated. Mm-hmm. Disappointed and mad. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You ever get mad at people because they did?
Oh, yeah.
You like, I had to learn. One of my little things, and I said I was going to close with that, but let me really close with this one. I use my commute to work as a great ministry tool, because there's so much that goes on with people that just totally unconsiderate of other people. I could care less about you. I need to get where I'm trying to get to, and I don't care nothing about you. That's the way they drive. Now, for a long time, that's the way I used to drive. But I'm trying to learn and use that. So when I see these people acting up, I'm using it as a way of mentally teaching myself as a metaphor for life. Mm-hmm. And so that driving to work means something now to me, more than just trying to get to work. Because if I didn't change it to something else, I'd be, when you drive a 684, an hour to work every day. It's 2 hours, both when you travel front there and back. And you use it as a tool for God to speak to me about how things are, what people do, why you need to let this person on. I had a guy throw a bag at me because I saw a guy with a truck, and he had a trailer behind the truck, trying to get into. And I'm like, he ain't gonna never get into this traffic. So I stopped. I stopped and let him in. Mm-hmm. Man, you'd have thought I just. What in the world did you just do? Mm-hmm. And people were throwing trash at my car, and I'm like,
That sounds about right.
I'm like, wow. And he's talking to me through this. He goes, see, this is what people do and how they feel. Real emotions are in those little capsules that we put ourselves in called automobiles. God showed that to me. He said, you want to see what people are really like? Look at this. This is how they are. They'll be kind to you if you're in the supermarket and they see you with a bunch of groceries and they got one. They'll let you in. But something about what being in that car, there's very few people that have that mindset.
That's right.
So watch, observe, see, and then be good and be considerate and watch how. And it's amazing to me. I've been doing this for a couple of years now. It's like, it's just a great learning. Now I say all that to say that life is like that. When you try to do good and everything, you're not going to always get rewarded. You're not going to always get to the point where people are going to look at you and be like, oh, let me pat you on the back, man. That was a great. No, they're going to look at you, what the world are you doing?
You're not always going to get a thank you.
You're not going to get that thank you. So you can't do it for the thank you, and you can't do it for the pat on the back.
Do it because it needs to be done.
I had
She looked at me. I was
I
like,
had that happen, over this past week with, work. And it's bonus time, and it's based on your PA, and people start talking, and they say, well, we bet you got a whole bunch. I said, I got the least amount. I said, well, how, I said, well, my, who did your PA? I said, my supervisor, And then I just said, now y'all have a good day, and I kept going. I said, now, I know my words, and I know what I'm capable of doing, but I also see it as God telling me this is not the place for you. Sometimes that's just what it is, and you don't always get what you feel you deserve. But you still have to do your job.
Yeah, exactly.
To the best of your ability.
Exactly.
That's it.
Because you're not always going to be told you're the best, you're the best, you're the best.
Yeah.
You're doing good, you're doing good, you're doing good. And sometimes, people are just people.
Amen.
People are petty, people are, it's like being in high school all over again sometimes. People like who they like, and people don't like when you tell them no, and that's just the way that it is. People are just people, and you have to learn to just navigate through it.
That's it.
Every day you navigate through it.
That's the truth. You have to learn that, and that's why hold on to the things of the Lord. You get your joy and your reward and your bonus from the Lord.
Thank you. I always get what I need to hear when I come here.
Like I said, it's just so funny because we just had this conversation yesterday, sitting on my couch. When he came in, sitting up, he brought me some gifts. And I said, man, hey, I says, man, I ain't got nothing to give you. You know how, he says, man, you already gave me it. And I'm saying, I'm just looking at him, saying to myself, he's just
talking.
Trying to make me feel good. And as he's walking out the door, he says, I got heat, right? And I said, yeah, I know you got heat. He said, yeah, well, if you didn't help me put that valve in, I wouldn't have had heat. You know what I'm saying to myself? And that was money, though.
Yeah, but I appreciate that.
You know what I'm saying?
That month ago, that thank you goes a long way.
But it's
He's still working, bro.
but it's cold now.
Yeah.
It's cold now, brother. When I go up there and turn that dial, you know who I think about, right? I said, I thank God, but I thank God for sending Wayne.
It's
But
It's
that's
not always, people don't understand. I'm trying to tell them, man. Hey, brother, you think you didn't have a gift? You had a big gift.
That's it.
Because I could have went to somebody who came in there and said, oh yeah, I fixed that 400.
Exactly.
And this brother come in there talking about, see you later. Whoa, wait a minute, bro. We need to see you later. It's working, right? Yeah, hey, everything's cool.
I had a sandwich. Might make me a sandwich.
You might make your sandwich, but I still want to, I said, look, I want to give, I want to pay. What is it? Hey, see you later.
yeah, that's it. That's the ultimate gift. That's
So,
good.
Thank you goes a long way.
Yeah,
It does.
but God knows what he's doing. That's all I can tell people. I don't understand it like you say. I don't understand him.
Listen,
I just trust him and believe
since
him.
we sat in the diner, I stopped trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
I ain't
I'm just letting it happen.
Let it happen.
There you go. That's all you gotta do.
That's what the word. Let it happen.
Listen, I'm not trying to figure out my life. I'm just gonna walk the road. That's all I'm gonna
That's
do.
all you can do.
That's all I'm gonna do, cause like when mother said to me last week, she said, you know, you're in a war. And I went back home, I said, I'm in a war.
You're a war every day.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, I said, you know what? I said, she's right. But the only one you're fighting is yourself.
And sometimes that's the biggest war you
That's
ever
the
go through
biggest.
is yourself.
So I said to myself, I said, you know what? Lord, I give up. I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done.
That's what he wants to
I'm
hear.
done.
That's
You know,
what he
I
wants.
had to go back 20 years ago, and when I went into the room and said, thy will be done, not mine. You know, I'm gonna leave this in your hands. You did it already,
Yeah.
and I know this. So you know what? Did it once, I know you can do it again.
So
So
we.
I quit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's when God says, "Fine, now I can really guide you.
Yeah.
Just really start moving you around." And that's the beauty of it, and that's what we try to instill into everybody. It's not like I don't want you to try to do it a certain way, and that's what a lot of religions is built upon. You got to do it the Baptist way, or you got to do it the Catholic way, or no, you got to follow God and know Him for yourself.
Yeah, well, that's just like I was telling you how my mother's been talking to me, and she says, I have to get Pauline and Audrey together, and I gotta get Pauline and Larry together. And I'm saying, Mom, why you want me to do this? You know, out of the biggest knucklehead in the family, you want me to do this. And she just came to me and she said, but you're the baby. You know?
Yeah, well,
God
God
come
will.
together for the baby.
So I don't know how much, I was telling Haywood this yesterday, I don't know how I'm gonna do this.
You're not
But-
gonna do it. You're not gonna
but-
do it. He's gonna do it.
I'm not, and like that's what I figured out. Listen, he's gonna show me exactly what I need to do, when I need to do it.
Right.
So this morning he told me to get up, he told me to call my sister Barbara. I said, well, she's down south. He said, yeah, you call her, tell her to call Audrey, tell Audrey to call Pauline. I said, okay. Got on the phone. Barbara said, man, you know what time it is? I said, yeah, it's 7 o'clock. She said, why you wake me up? I said, cause God just told me, tell me to tell you to call Audrey and tell Audrey to call Pauline. She said, ain't nobody up now. I said, I don't care. I'm just telling you what was just told to me. Now, you can do it, or you can't do it, or you don't do it, but I know I just did what I was told to do.
Right.
That's all
That's
you
it.
gotta
That's
do.
it.
I just did what I was told to do.
Right.
So I leave it alone.
That's it.
You know, I know if I call anybody else, they ain't gonna answer their phone 7 o'clock in the morning. But my sister Barbara, she's gonna answer, cause first thing she think, oh Lord, something happened to my brother. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well,
You know? So, she said, yeah, I'm fine. I'm just telling you what I was just told to do.
right. That's
You
it.
know? That was before I even had my coffee.